Elias Carter had always felt out of place in the world he lived in. On the surface, he seemed like any other young man in the sprawling human colonies that orbited distant stars. He worked at the Central Observatory, charting familiar stars and cataloging known planets. But beneath the routine of his life lay an unquenchable curiosity, a curiosity that constantly pushed him toward the unknown. While others were content with maps approved by the Galactic Council and reports on planets already explored, Elias spent his nights poring over forbidden star charts, ancient logs of lost expeditions, and stories of civilizations that humans were warned never to contact. Every line he read made the universe seem far larger, more mysterious, and infinitely more dangerous than anyone in his society cared to admit. His fascination began quietly. As a child, he would sneak into the observation decks, staring at the sky for hours. He did not just see twinkling lights or distant suns, he imagined worlds beyond imagination, full of colors, landscapes, and creatures that no human had ever encountered. He would draw maps on scraps of paper, tracing routes that might lead to places no one was supposed to go. His parents often found him asleep at his desk, surrounded by sketches of stars and planets that did not exist on official maps. They gently urged him to focus on real tasks, on proper education, on a safe life within human-controlled space, but Elias could not let go. There was a voice inside him, soft but insistent, that whispered of worlds waiting to be discovered, of knowledge that could change everything. As he grew older, the warnings of the Galactic Council became more explicit. Interstellar travel was strictly regulated, and venturing into forbidden sectors was punishable by a lifetime in isolation or worse. The Council maintained that these regions were dangerous, that the unknown carried threats that could wipe out entire colonies. Many humans obeyed, believing the laws were necessary to protect civilization. But Elias saw the rules differently. He believed that fear was what kept humanity small. Every restriction felt like a chain on his mind, and every unexplored region was a door he longed to open. By the time he reached his mid-20s, Elias had become an expert in spacecraft design and navigation. He had spent countless hours learning everything possible about propulsion, life support, and navigation systems, not for his official work, but for something he had never admitted to anyone. He had been secretly planning. Each night, in the quiet of his small apartment overlooking the orbital city, he sketched designs for a small, agile spacecraft capable of slipping past the automated patrols of the Galactic Council. Every circuit, every engine module, every navigation system was meticulously designed to avoid detection. It was a dangerous dream, one that could easily end in death if anything went wrong, but the thought of exploring the forbidden world made the risk feel small. Elias's obsession was not limited to machines and maps. He studied old stories of explorers from centuries past, men and women who had taken unimaginable risks for the sake of discovery. He read of the great starfarers who vanished in sectors long considered lost, whose names had become legends whispered among scholars and adventurers. To him, they were not reckless, they were brave, visionary, and alive in a way ordinary humans could never understand. Each story filled him with longing. He often imagined standing where they had stood, seeing the universe with his own eyes rather than through the lens of others' reports. Yet curiosity alone was not enough to drive Elias. There was a loneliness in his life, a sense that while others lived comfortably in the familiar, he was being suffocated by normality. His colleagues at the observatory admired his knowledge but often found him distant, lost in thought, and strangely restless. They did not understand why he spent hours studying star systems that no human had any business approaching. They warned him, subtly and not so subtly, that obsession could be dangerous. But Elias felt a fire inside him, one that demanded action. He wanted to see the unknown not from a distance but from the surface, to touch it, to feel it, to understand it. One evening, after a long day cataloging star movements, Elias made a decision. He would not wait for permission, and he would not live a life confined by fear or rules. He would build the spacecraft he had always dreamed of, and he would venture into the forbidden sectors himself. He began acquiring materials secretly, trading in parts under assumed names, and working in a hidden section of the observatory's maintenance base. Every bolt he tightened, every wire he connected, every system he tested was a step closer to his goal. He faced countless setbacks, power surges, material shortages, and software errors, but he never gave up. Each challenge strengthened his determination, confirming that he was meant for something greater than ordinary life. Even as he built his ship, Elias felt the weight of responsibility pressing on him. He knew the risks were enormous. Detection by the Council could mean imprisonment, or worse, the destruction of everything he had worked for. And yet, the thrill of possibility was irresistible. He imagined stepping onto a planet no human had ever touched, seeing skies painted in colors that defied imagination, walking over landscapes that had remained untouched for eons. The thought made his pulse quicken, and for the first time in years, he felt completely alive. The nights before his departure were restless. Elias could not sleep, haunted by visions of the forbidden world and by doubts that whispered he was making a mistake. Yet each morning, he returned to his ship, checking engines, inspecting life support, and recalibrating navigation systems. Every detail mattered, because one small error could end everything. Despite the fear, he felt a strange calm, a sense that the universe itself was waiting for him to take the next step. Finally, the ship was ready. Elias stood on the observation deck of his orbital apartment one last time, staring at the stars he had studied for so long. He felt a mixture of fear, excitement, and awe. Beyond the lights of human civilization lay the unknown, vast and infinite, calling him forward. He knew that once he crossed the boundaries set by the Galactic Council, there would be no turning back. Yet, for the first time, he also knew that he was exactly where he was meant to be. With a deep breath, he activated the ship's engines, feeling the vibration beneath his feet, the hum of life and energy coursing through the craft. As the spacecraft slipped silently into the darkness of uncharted space, Elias looked back at the familiar world he was leaving behind. His heart raced with anticipation, and he felt a deep sense of purpose. He was not reckless, he reminded himself he was searching, discovering, stepping into the vast unknown that humanity had feared for centuries. The stars stretched endlessly before him, and for the first time, the universe felt like a place full of infinite possibilities rather than rules and restrictions. He smiled, knowing that this was only the beginning of a journey that would change not just his life, but the course of human history forever. Elias Carter's heart pounded as the small spacecraft slipped through the darkness of uncharted space. Beyond the boundaries set by the Galactic Council, there was no law, no guidance, no certainty, only the cold, vast unknown. For years, he had imagined this moment, the thrill of leaving human-controlled space behind, the fear of the unseen, and the knowledge that he was stepping where no human had dared. Now, as the stars stretched endlessly around him, all of those years of preparation, study, and secret planning came together in a single, trembling moment of possibility. The first challenge came quickly. Even though his spacecraft was built for stealth and agility, the forbidden sectors were not empty. Invisible fields of cosmic debris, remnants of ancient collisions and decayed planets, threatened to tear the craft apart. Elias gripped the controls, his knuckles white, as he maneuvered through a cloud of spinning rock fragments that seemed determined to block his path. He had calculated trajectories and escape routes countless times, but nothing could have truly prepared him for the chaotic motion of the real universe. Each movement required precision, patience, and quick reflexes. A single mistake could destroy not only the ship but also the last chance humanity would have to learn from what lay beyond. Despite the danger, Elias felt alive in a way he never had before. Every rock he dodged, every burst of the engine that carried him forward, made him feel connected to the universe in a profound, almost spiritual way. For years, he had lived in the regulated, predictable corridors of human society, obeying rules and schedules that limited imagination. Now, he was part of something far larger, something unpredictable and breathtakingly beautiful. Colors shimmered in the gas clouds around him, violets, oranges, and greens twisting together in patterns no human eyes had recorded before. He took careful notes, documenting every anomaly, every change in trajectory, every shift in light and energy. Hours passed, or maybe days. Time itself felt strange in this uncharted space. Eventually, he saw it, a faint glow on the edge of the sensors, a planet not listed in any human records. It was small, but the energy readings were enormous, as if the planet itself were alive. Elias felt a shiver run down his spine. The glowing world pulsed gently, almost rhythmically, as though breathing. He adjusted his approach, slowing the craft to a careful hover just above its atmosphere. The surface was obscured by shifting clouds of color, swirling in ways that seemed to resist his instruments. Every sensor he had gave different readings, and none could fully capture the strange energy that radiated from the planet. Elias stared in awe. The forbidden world was more than just uncharted territory, it was something alive, something aware. The patterns of light and movement seemed to respond to his presence, as if the planet could sense the first human daring to step upon it. His mind raced with a mix of fear and exhilaration. He knew the stories of explorers lost to uncharted worlds, and the warnings of the Council echoed in his memory, but those tales felt distant compared to the reality before him. He was here, alone, at the edge of human experience, and the consequences of his journey had only begun to unfold. With careful precision, Elias began preparing to descend. The spacecraft's landing gear extended, and the engines adjusted to navigate the planet's unusual gravitational pull. The first touch of the surface was soft but uneven. Strange vibrations traveled through the hull of the craft, subtle pulses that seemed almost intentional. He glanced at the readings. The energy of the planet was unlike anything humans had catalogued. Plants, if they could be called that, moved slowly beneath the clouds, shifting in patterns that suggested intelligence. The ground seemed to respond to every movement of the ship, and Elias realized that the planet was not passive. It watched, sensed, and perhaps even understood the presence of life. Stepping out of the spacecraft, Elias felt the soil beneath his boots shift slightly. The colors of the sky were impossible to describe, swirling hues that reflected off a surface he could barely comprehend. A gentle hum filled the air, vibrating through his body, as if the planet itself were singing in frequencies no human instruments could detect. Elias walked carefully, documenting every sensation, every change in color, every pulse that passed through the ground. He felt a deep connection forming, a bond with this world that was both thrilling and frightening. As he explored further, Elias encountered structures scattered across the landscape. They were ancient, made of materials that seemed organic yet metallic, twisting and flowing in shapes that defied human architecture. Strange symbols were etched into the surfaces, glowing faintly as if reacting to his presence. He approached one structure with cautious curiosity, running his hands over the smooth, warm surface. The moment he touched it, a wave of energy passed through him, not painful, but overwhelming. Images flashed in his mind, landscapes he had never seen, cities in the clouds, machines moving with lifelike precision, and a civilization long gone but still alive in essence. The more Elias explored, the more he realized that this world had secrets humanity could barely imagine. It was a place of knowledge, intelligence, and history that had survived countless ages, hidden from the eyes of the rest of the universe. Yet even as he marveled, a quiet sense of unease crept in. He was not meant to be here, and the universe had rules for a reason. Every step he took could have consequences far beyond his understanding. Still, his curiosity would not be denied. Each discovery pushed him forward, deeper into a reality no human had ever touched, challenging everything he thought he knew about life, intelligence, and the cosmos itself. Elias soon realized that he was not alone in subtle ways. The planet seemed to communicate in pulses and vibrations, gentle nudges that guided him toward certain areas while warning him away from others. He followed a path that led to a central structure, vast and awe-inspiring, filled with what looked like machines and artifacts that hummed with energy. He moved among them carefully, recording every detail, fascinated and terrified at the same time. He understood that this was a world designed for a purpose, a place that might contain knowledge that could change the very course of human civilization. Hours melted into what felt like moments. The boundary between night and day, time and space, reality and imagination seemed to blur. Elias walked, studied, and recorded, fully immersed in the forbidden world's living landscape. Yet, beneath the wonder, he felt a subtle warning. The planet was aware, and it was changing. Small tremors ran through the ground, plants shifted faster than before, and some structures emitted low, resonant hums that grew louder with every step he took. He sensed that his presence was not only being observed, it was altering the planet in ways he could not yet understand. Finally, Elias paused atop a ridge, looking down at a valley where colors twisted and shimmered like liquid. He felt both fear and exhilaration. He was a visitor, a stranger in a world that had existed for eons without human interference. And yet, he was here, alive, documenting, discovering, connecting. Every rule he had broken, every risk he had taken, every secret act of preparation had led him to this moment. He knew that the story of his life, and perhaps the story of humanity, was shifting beneath his feet. One step had brought him to the forbidden world, but it was only the first of many. As night fell, the planet glowed with an inner light, casting shadows that moved in impossible patterns. Elias returned to his spacecraft to rest, his mind buzzing with questions, observations, and a profound sense of awe. He knew that tomorrow, he would explore even deeper, uncovering more secrets and encountering challenges he could not yet imagine. But for the moment, he allowed himself to marvel, to feel the extraordinary reality of being the first human to step onto a forbidden world, a step that would echo far beyond the boundaries of space and time. Elias Carter awoke inside his small spacecraft, the gentle hum of the ship mingling with the soft vibrations coming from the forbidden world below. Sleep had been elusive, his mind racing with the images of glowing plants, shifting landscapes, and the mysterious structures he had seen the night before. There was no rest for someone standing at the edge of the unknown. The planet was alive, and he could feel it. Every movement, every breath seemed to ripple through its surface, as though it acknowledged his presence, and perhaps even judged it. Elias knew he was treading on something ancient, something powerful, and he could not afford to act recklessly. He prepared to descend again, this time stepping farther from his landing site. With each step on the planet's surface, the hum of life intensified. It was not simply a sound, it was a vibration he felt in his bones. The structures he had seen yesterday called to him now, pulling him toward the center of the vast landscape. He followed instinct and curiosity, feeling a mixture of awe and fear. The more he moved, the more he realized that every surface, every rock, and even the air itself seemed imbued with energy. The planet was not merely a backdrop, it was a living, breathing entity, aware of him in a way he could barely comprehend. As he reached the largest structure, Elias saw that it was far more than a simple building. It stretched upward and outward in sweeping curves, blending materials that looked both natural and mechanical. Glowing symbols adorned the walls, pulsing gently, almost rhythmically. Elias crouched down and studied them, tracing the patterns with his fingers. They were not language as humans knew it, yet he could feel meaning behind each curve and line. It was as if the symbols were alive, capable of conveying thoughts directly to those who dared touch them. A wave of understanding washed over him. This civilization had mastered communication and technology in ways humanity could not yet imagine. He ventured deeper into the structure, discovering devices that seemed dormant but contained enormous potential. Machines of strange design filled vast chambers, humming softly with latent energy. Elias carefully examined one of them, noting how it resembled a fusion of organic and mechanical elements. He touched a smooth surface, and immediately a series of lights flickered to life. Data streams appeared, images of landscapes, cities, and beings long gone yet vividly alive in memory. Elias realized he had stumbled upon an archive, a repository of knowledge and history preserved by a civilization far older and more advanced than humanity. His excitement grew, but so did his fear. Every action he took could trigger consequences he could not foresee. Hours passed as he explored, documenting, and studying the artifacts. He discovered that some devices were capable of controlling environmental conditions, moving mountains, redirecting rivers, and even shaping weather. The power he witnessed was staggering. It was a technology designed to harmonize with life rather than dominate it, a stark contrast to humanity's own history of exploitation and destruction. Elias felt a growing sense of responsibility. He had come as a visitor, a curious human, but he was quickly becoming a guardian, someone who had to respect and preserve the legacy of this world. While he explored, Elias accidentally activated a dormant machine. It was subtle at first, a low hum, a vibration beneath his feet, but soon, a pulse of energy radiated outward. It was detectable beyond the planet itself, traveling through space in a pattern that no human device could ignore. Elias froze, realizing the enormity of what he had done. He had not just uncovered a secret, he had sent a signal across the galaxy, a beacon marking the planet's presence. He understood then that he could not undo this action. His curiosity had consequences, and the ripples of his decision would spread far and wide, touching civilizations and systems he had never known existed. The realization filled him with both awe and dread. His presence was no longer private, he had become a participant in a cosmic event whose scale was beyond comprehension. Elias wondered if the planet itself had allowed this to happen, subtly guiding him toward discovery while testing his intentions. The energy pulse seemed almost intelligent, aware, as if it were assessing him, measuring whether he could be trusted with the knowledge it guarded. Every instinct told him to retreat, to leave the planet and report nothing, but he could not stop. The allure of discovery was stronger than fear. He pressed onward, documenting every detail, hoping to understand the logic and purpose behind the technology he had uncovered. Elias soon encountered inscriptions along the walls of the central chamber. Unlike the symbols outside, these were intricate, forming sequences that suggested mathematical patterns, cosmic coordinates, and philosophical principles. As he traced them with his fingers, flashes of understanding filled his mind. He could sense the civilization's intentions. They had sought to harmonize life across planets, to maintain balance in ecosystems, to communicate with the universe in ways humans had yet to achieve. Each symbol carried meaning far beyond language, encoding both practical knowledge and a moral philosophy. Elias felt humbled. Humanity's understanding of science and ethics seemed pale compared to the wisdom embedded in this structure. Hours stretched into days, or at least what felt like days. Time had little meaning on this world. The planet's rhythms and energies dictated perception, creating a sense of timelessness. Elias had begun to feel a connection that went beyond intellectual curiosity. He felt part of something larger, a universe alive in ways he could barely articulate. Yet this connection came with pressure. He could not explore recklessly. The balance of the planet, and perhaps of distant systems, depended on careful interaction. Every touch, every movement, every note he recorded was a step that could either preserve or disrupt the intricate harmony of this ancient world. Elias decided to investigate an area that appeared to serve as a central hub for the planet's energy systems. Vast conduits of light and material twisted through the landscape like veins in a living organism. Sensors and instruments, though dormant, contained massive reserves of energy, enough to alter local environments or even affect neighboring planets. Elias moved cautiously, aware that a single mistake could trigger catastrophic effects. Yet he could not resist the draw of discovery. His hands hovered over controls, and he felt the hum of the planet respond, a gentle warning or perhaps a welcome. He understood that he was interacting not with lifeless machines but with systems integrated into a living world, a network of intelligence spanning every surface and layer of the planet. The implications struck him suddenly. Humanity had always feared the unknown, had imposed rules to protect itself from dangers it could not foresee. But this world was not dangerous in the sense humans imagined. It was powerful, yes, and unpredictable, yes, but it was alive and intelligent. It responded not with hostility but with a test, a way to measure those who dared enter, to determine if they could respect, understand, and preserve what it held. Elias realized that he had been chosen, or at least allowed, to witness its secrets, and that every action he took could influence far more than just his own destiny. Toward the end of his exploration, Elias noticed patterns forming across the surface. Lights and vibrations seemed to signal one another, creating a network of responses that suggested the planet's sentience extended far beyond what he had seen. The energy pulse he had triggered earlier was part of this network, a way for the planet to communicate with distant systems. Elias understood that he had altered something fundamental. By stepping onto this world and interacting with its technology, he had shifted the flow of energy and information, potentially changing events across the galaxy. He felt a mix of pride and dread. The consequences of human curiosity had become painfully real. As he returned to his spacecraft for the night, Elias reflected on the enormity of what he had discovered. He had not only found a world beyond human reach but had interacted with an ancient intelligence capable of shaping life itself. Every observation, every note he recorded, was part of a story that humanity had never known. He realized that he would carry both the knowledge and the burden of this experience for the rest of his life. He had stepped onto a forbidden world, unlocked secrets that could alter civilizations, and yet, he was only beginning to understand the scale of what he had done. Elias gazed out at the swirling skies above the planet, colors shifting in impossible ways, and felt a mixture of awe, fear, and responsibility. The journey had only just begun. Tomorrow would bring more exploration, more discoveries, and perhaps more challenges than he could imagine. But in that moment, he allowed himself a quiet sense of wonder. He had touched a civilization older than humanity, unlocked its hidden knowledge, and unknowingly sent a ripple across the universe. One human's curiosity had begun to shift the course of events on a scale he could barely comprehend, and the full impact of his actions would unfold in ways he was only beginning to glimpse. Elias Carter awoke once again on the surface of the forbidden world, the strange hum of the planet vibrating through his entire body. The energy he had inadvertently released the day before still pulsed faintly in the air, leaving him with a sense that the planet itself was aware of his presence and increasingly responsive to his every movement. He had learned to move carefully, to touch nothing without thought, and to observe everything with patience. But despite his caution, he felt an underlying tension, as if the planet were watching more closely now, testing him, waiting to see how he would continue. The morning light, though unlike any human sunlight he had ever seen, shimmered across the landscape in shifting hues of gold, green, and violet. The sky itself seemed alive, breathing in patterns of light and color that he could not fully describe. Elias could feel the energy flowing through the soil beneath him, through the rocks, and even through the strange structures that dotted the planet's surface. Everything seemed connected, part of a vast network of intelligence that extended beyond what his human mind could comprehend. As he moved, the ground responded, subtle pulses guiding him along pathways that might otherwise have remained hidden. As he explored, he noticed more clearly that the world was not passive. The plants, which had seemed static the day before, moved in intricate patterns. Their motions were slow and deliberate, almost like gestures of communication. The structures around him shifted slightly, as though adjusting to his presence. Elias realized that the planet itself was sentient, a living entity interacting with him through both energy and subtle movements. This realization filled him with both awe and caution. He was a guest here, a human intruder on a world far older and wiser than himself, and he understood that even small mistakes could have unforeseen consequences. The central area of the planet, where the largest structures and energy conduits converged, drew him inexorably forward. Here, the vibrations in the ground were strongest, and the hum of the planet intensified, echoing in his ears and resonating deep within his chest. As he approached, he could see the energy networks stretching across the landscape, veins of light that connected everything from the tallest structures to the smallest plants. The pulses of energy he had triggered earlier seemed to have traveled along these veins, activating dormant systems and creating a subtle chain reaction. Elias could sense that the planet was responding not just to him, but to the presence of life itself, adjusting its internal systems in ways he could barely understand. As he moved among the structures, Elias realized that the planet's intelligence was not confined to its surface. It extended far into the skies above and deep into the layers below. Sensors he had once thought to be mechanical now seemed organic, integrated into the planet's own consciousness. The machines he had activated were not simply tools, they were part of a vast, self-regulating system designed to maintain balance across the planet and, perhaps, beyond. Elias understood that his actions were now influencing not just the immediate environment but also the planet's internal processes and, possibly, distant celestial systems connected through energy networks he could not fully perceive. Over the course of his exploration, Elias observed phenomena that defied human explanation. Mountains shifted imperceptibly, rivers redirected themselves slightly, and plant life rearranged its patterns as he passed. He began to notice subtle signs that the planet was learning from his actions, adapting in ways that suggested intelligence far beyond any human conception. He felt a mixture of excitement and fear. The discovery of sentience was exhilarating, yet it also made him painfully aware of his responsibility. He had crossed a boundary, and every step he took now carried weight. One wrong move could disrupt not only the harmony of this world but potentially other systems connected through its energy networks. As he delved deeper, Elias encountered a series of chambers unlike any he had seen before. These chambers seemed designed to test those who entered, with shifting floors, fluctuating energy levels, and patterns that required careful observation to navigate. It became clear that the planet was not only sentient but also protective, creating challenges that allowed visitors to demonstrate their intentions and understanding. Elias approached each obstacle with meticulous care, learning to read the subtle cues in light, vibration, and movement. The more he succeeded, the more he felt a connection with the world, as if it were acknowledging his capability and trustworthiness. Yet, even as he mastered these trials, distant effects began to ripple across the galaxy. From afar, Elias had no way of knowing, but anomalies started appearing in neighboring star systems. Communication arrays on human colonies experienced brief interruptions, satellites detected unexplained energy fluctuations, and sensors recorded patterns that defied conventional understanding. The energy pulse he had released had traveled far beyond the planet, sending signals that other intelligent systems could detect. Elias was unaware of these events at first, but subtle shifts in the readings on his own instruments hinted that the consequences of his exploration were reaching outward, connecting him to events he could not control. One evening, as the sky above shimmered with ever-changing colors, Elias paused to study a particularly intricate structure. It was taller than any building he had ever seen, its surface flowing like liquid metal and organic tissue intertwined. The symbols etched across it pulsed in response to his presence, and he realized that this structure was a central hub for the planet's energy systems. The hum grew louder as he approached, and he could feel the energy responding directly to his thoughts and movements. It was a subtle but unmistakable connection, one that allowed him to sense the world's intelligence and its capacity to react. Elias understood that he had entered into a dialogue with the planet itself, a communication far beyond human language. As he explored the hub, he discovered a series of devices capable of manipulating environmental conditions on a massive scale. Some could redirect energy flows, adjust atmospheric patterns, and even influence the arrangement of terrain and plant life. Elias understood that these devices were not weapons but tools designed to maintain harmony and balance. Yet their potential for impact was enormous. A single activation could affect the planet's entire ecosystem and, through the energy networks, extend to other celestial bodies. The realization filled him with a mix of awe and responsibility. Humanity had never encountered such power, and he was the first to witness it firsthand. The more he interacted with the systems, the more Elias realized that the planet was not simply passive, it was learning from him. The pulses of energy he generated, the patterns of his movement, and the areas he touched were all incorporated into the planet's adaptive intelligence. It was as though he were part of a living experiment, a participant in a process designed to understand the intentions and capabilities of those who dared to explore. Elias marveled at the sophistication of the world. Every detail, every response, every subtle shift spoke of a civilization that had achieved harmony on a scale humanity could barely imagine. By the end of his exploration day, Elias felt a mixture of triumph and unease. He had uncovered secrets, interacted with technology far beyond human understanding, and forged a connection with a sentient world. Yet he was acutely aware that his presence had consequences he could not fully measure. The planet had changed in response to him, and distant systems had begun to feel the ripple effects. He realized that his journey was no longer just about discovery, it was about responsibility. Every action he took could influence the balance of life, energy, and intelligence across vast distances. As night fell, the sky above shimmered with colors that defied human description. Elias returned to his spacecraft, exhausted but exhilarated. The forbidden world beneath him seemed to pulse with quiet satisfaction, acknowledging his careful exploration and the understanding he had shown. He knew that tomorrow would bring more challenges, more discoveries, and possibly greater consequences. Yet he also knew that he was part of something extraordinary, a story that stretched far beyond his own experience. One human's presence had begun to shift the course of the forbidden world and the systems connected to it, and Elias understood that the full impact of his actions was only beginning to unfold. Elias Carter felt a mixture of relief and apprehension as he prepared to leave the forbidden world. For days, he had wandered its surface, explored its vast structures, and documented its extraordinary technology. He had come as a visitor, but he was leaving as someone who had altered the course of events in ways he could not yet comprehend. The planet had responded to him, adapted to his presence, and even learned from his actions. He now understood the full weight of what it meant to be the first human to step onto a world that had remained hidden for eons. Every decision, every interaction, every note he recorded had consequences, some immediate and some that would unfold across time and space. The journey back to his spacecraft was quiet, yet heavy with significance. The familiar hum of the ship seemed almost comforting compared to the unpredictable energy of the planet. Elias secured his equipment, double-checked the navigation systems, and looked back one last time at the landscape that had become both a marvel and a responsibility. The colors of the sky shimmered in impossible patterns, the structures glowed faintly, and the plants shifted subtly as if waving goodbye. He felt a profound connection, knowing that this world would continue to live, learn, and adapt long after he had left. But he also knew that his actions had sent ripples beyond the planet, affecting distant stars, colonies, and civilizations he might never encounter. As the engines ignited and the spacecraft lifted off, Elias felt the vibrations of the planet beneath him diminish, replaced by the steady hum of his own craft. He watched as the forbidden world receded into the distance, a glowing jewel suspended in the vastness of space. The realization hit him that humanity would never view this planet the same way again. Even if no one else knew of its existence yet, his presence had triggered a chain reaction, an energy pulse traveling across the galaxy, leaving traces of intelligence and activity that other civilizations could detect. His curiosity had become a bridge, connecting human knowledge with a world older and wiser than humanity itself. The journey home was long and filled with reflection. Elias spent hours reviewing the data he had collected, reading through the images, energy readings, and notes he had recorded. Each artifact, each structure, each pulse of energy told a story, revealing insights into a civilization that had thrived for millennia. He marveled at their wisdom, the harmony of their technology with life, and the intelligence woven into the very fabric of the planet. Yet he could not ignore the growing awareness that he had unleashed forces beyond human comprehension. His actions, though careful and respectful, had already begun to influence the galaxy in ways that were subtle but undeniable. When he finally approached human-controlled space, anxiety crept in. The Galactic Council had strict rules about forbidden sectors, and any unauthorized travel could result in severe punishment. Elias knew that if they discovered his journey, they might view him as reckless, perhaps even dangerous. Yet he also knew that hiding the truth would mean suppressing knowledge that could change humanity's understanding of life, intelligence, and the universe. He faced a moral dilemma: report everything, risking punishment but sharing incredible discoveries, or remain silent and carry the burden of knowledge alone. His decision weighed heavily on him, shaping the final steps of his journey. Upon arrival at the human colony nearest to the forbidden sector, Elias transmitted a controlled set of data to the Council. He included observations that were verifiable but omitted certain details that could trigger panic or misunderstanding. Within hours, a response arrived. The Council was both alarmed and intrigued. Sensors had detected anomalies consistent with Elias's reports, confirming that something extraordinary had occurred. A team of officials and scientists was dispatched to investigate, and Elias was called to provide testimony. The mixture of fear and pride within him grew. He had broken the rules, yet his actions had opened doors that humanity could never have accessed otherwise. Elias's testimony before the Council was cautious but thorough. He described the structures, the energy systems, the sentience of the planet, and the potential consequences of interacting with it. He emphasized the need for careful exploration and respect, warning that even small mistakes could have far-reaching effects. The Council listened, initially skeptical, but as he presented data, images, and energy readings, they began to understand the gravity of his discovery. A debate ensued about how humanity should proceed. Some argued for strict containment, fearing the unknown; others, inspired by Elias's courage, advocated for careful, guided exploration. It was clear that one human's actions had already shifted the course of policy, knowledge, and responsibility for the entire civilization. In the following days, the ripple effects of Elias's journey became more apparent. Sensors across distant colonies began to pick up unusual energy patterns. Some communication arrays experienced interference, while others recorded signals that suggested a presence or intelligence not previously understood. Scientists were baffled, realizing that the Forbidden World's energy networks had extended beyond its own boundaries. Elias understood that his initial steps had triggered events that were impossible to reverse. Humanity now faced a new reality: the universe was not only larger and more complex than previously imagined, but it was also alive in ways that demanded respect, caution, and humility. Despite recognition from parts of the Council, Elias faced criticism and fear. Some officials branded him as reckless, an individual who had risked destabilizing systems beyond human comprehension. Others viewed him as a pioneer, someone whose courage and intellect had expanded the boundaries of human knowledge. Elias felt the weight of conflicting opinions, yet he remained resolute. He knew that the universe was vast, and humanity's understanding was still young. His journey had proven that rules were important, but so was curiosity guided by respect and responsibility. One human step had created a turning point, and he had to ensure that future actions were thoughtful, informed, and ethical. As time passed, the Forbidden World became a focal point of study and cautious exploration. Humanity developed new protocols, technologies, and research teams to approach the planet without causing harm. Every decision was influenced by Elias's initial experience, ensuring that respect for life, intelligence, and balance remained paramount. The Council slowly shifted from a stance of fear to one of careful curiosity, recognizing that humanity could grow by learning from worlds beyond its own. Elias watched this transformation with quiet satisfaction, understanding that his journey had set in motion changes that would influence generations to come. Yet for Elias personally, the journey had a deeper impact. He felt a profound connection to the universe, a sense of responsibility that extended far beyond his immediate life. Every time he studied the data, every time he reflected on the planet, he understood that knowledge came with duty. The forbidden world had entrusted him with its secrets, and he could not betray that trust. His life had changed irreversibly, not because of fame or recognition, but because he had dared to step where no human had gone and had engaged with the unknown with care, courage, and respect. In the quiet moments of reflection, Elias thought about the future. Humanity would eventually return, carefully and respectfully, guided by protocols shaped by his experience. Other civilizations might detect the signals he had unintentionally sent, leading to contact, cooperation, or even conflict. The universe was now a living network of events, intelligence, and possibilities, and humanity was part of it. Elias understood that his single step had set off a chain of events that would unfold for centuries, perhaps millennia. Yet he felt a sense of peace, knowing that he had acted with integrity, curiosity, and respect. As the story of Elias Carter and the Forbidden World spread across human colonies, he became both a symbol and a reminder. He represented the potential of curiosity tempered by responsibility, the courage to explore the unknown while respecting its power, and the impact one individual could have on the broader course of civilization. People debated his actions, studied his findings, and learned from his experiences. Yet he never sought fame or glory. For Elias, the journey itself, the act of discovery, understanding, and connection was its own reward. In the end, Elias looked out at the stars, the same stars that had drawn him into the forbidden sector years ago. He felt a quiet pride, tempered by humility, as he realized that one human's curiosity had not only unveiled a hidden world but had also shifted the course of human understanding forever. He had taken a step into the unknown, faced its challenges, respected its intelligence, and returned to share its wonders responsibly. And though the universe remained vast, mysterious, and sometimes dangerous, Elias knew that humanity had taken its first step toward a future shaped by both knowledge and wisdom, guided by the lessons of a world that had existed far longer and wiser than any human civilization.